This might be a solution to her own dilemma. She couldn't say she understood it, but people actually paid for the opportunity to eat food cooked in a chuck wagon, ride around on horses, and drive cattle. Why these people would prefer to live in primitive circumstances when they could experience the luxury of some fancy resort for basically the same price was beyond her. Apparently she had a lot to learn, but learn she did. After months of research, Nell was convinced that a dude ranch really was the answer. With a portion of her profits from the sale of last year's herd, she'd had brochures printed, and she'd contacted several travel companies. Now she was almost ready for business, and in a couple of months she'd be entertaining her first bunkhouse full of greenhorns. In many ways, she was a natural for this kind of work. After these few years without Jake, there wasn't a ranching chore she couldn't accomplish with the speed and dexterity of a man. At this point, she knew as much about ranching as any cowboy. Not only that, she'd heard the great stories of Texas all her life. Stories about the state's settlement, and the Alamo, and the early cattle drives, and many more. She'd always loved those stories, and if she could make money telling them now, romanticizing the Old West, all the better. Heavy black clouds darkened the sky. Pushing thoughts of Jake from her mind, Nell focused her attention on the highway. Driving well above the speed limit, she rounded a turn in the road and saw a sports utility vehicle parked along the side. Some damn fool had stopped to take pictures of the approaching storm. The man obviously wasn't a local. Anyone from Texas would know to take cover, and fast. Like the state of Texas itself, storms tended to make an impression, especially spring storms like this one. Despite her hurry, Nell applied her brakes and pulled over. With the engine running, she leaped down from the cab. The wind slapped her long braid against her face as she raced toward the stranger. The greenhorn lowered his camera.
"Howdy."
He greeted her cheerfully. He was taller than she was and clean-cut. His clothes were new-looking but rumpled.
"Listen, I don't mean to be rude, but any idiot knows to head for cover in a storm."
His smile faded to a frown.
"I don't know where you're from or where you're going," she went on, "but if I were you, I'd get my butt back into that fancy car of yours and drive into town as fast as those tires will take you."
Having done her duty, she started back to her truck.
"Hey,"
he said.
"Got a minute? I have a few questions." "I have to go."
Nell didn't mean to sound abrupt, but she didn't have time to waste. She'd said her piece, and whether or not he took her advice was completely up to him.
"Are you from around here?"
he called after her.
"Yes. Now listen, we get hail the size of golf balls, and if you don't want to pay to have the dents removed, then I suggest you make tracks for town." "This will only take a minute." "I don't have a minute. I've got horses and calves to worry about,"
Nell shouted into the wind.
"And I don't have time to convince you a storm is about to break."
She raised her hand toward the threatening sky.
"It's going to cost you plenty if you don't get that vehicle under cover." "I'm insured." "Hail is an act of God."
Whether he caught her last words or not, she didn't know. Nell leaped into her truck and put the pickup in gear. One glance in the rearview mirror proved that giving this stranger advice had been a wasted effort. He hadn't moved. Furthermore, he wasn't snapping pictures of the dark horizon anymore. He was taking pictures of her. Shaking her head in wonder, Nell dismissed him from her thoughts and drove home at breakneck speed. When she pulled into the ranch yard, she saw Jeremy chasing chickens in a futile attempt to lure them into the coop. Emma and Ruth led the horses toward the barn, yanking on the reins as the two geldings battled the wind. The scene right before the tornado in The Wizard of Oz flashed through Nell's mind. She parked the truck near the barn where it would be protected and hurried toward her family. With her help, Ruth and Emma managed to secure the animals before the storm broke. By the time they scurried into the house, the rain had started and they were breathless and excited.
"We did it,"
12-year-old Jeremy said, exchanging a high five with his sister. Unlike most siblings, Jeremy